Hi, I'm Caitlin. I'm here with SHYFT at Mile High. We are a nonprofit donation-based space, primarily just for weekly classes and things like that, but we are a mindfulness studio primarily. So that's our mission, is mindfulness, being more in your mind and your body at the same time. Rosemerry is here to help us out with the beautiful poetry Thoughtshop. We have 45 on now. Okay, they're trickling in. Rosemary's going to bring you about an hour of beautiful poems to share, also to work on yourself. So this will be a recording and it will be sent to you right after the workshop. About a week after the workshop, we'll send everyone another email. So unfortunately, even if you didn't get in or if you saw this second email, again, our apologies on that technology. You will have the recording afterwards to still be able to enjoy. So I hope you guys enjoy your space. Thank you so much, Rosemerry. Have a good night, and I'll see you guys soon. Thanks,
Caitlin.
Thank you. Bye.
And thanks to SHYFT. I'm so grateful to SHYFT for all the work that they do. And I'm going to be doing a program in person for SHYFT in Denver on December 3rd. So if you're in Denver or you can make your way to Denver, it'd be lovely to have you join us for a workshop during the day on December 3rd on darkness and light and making peace with darkness. And then an evening program in which I'll be performing with a phenomenal guitar player, Steve Law. So if it's possible for you to join us in Denver, I'll be sending out more information about that. You can sign up on SHYFT and you can get more information on my website. Okay, we're arriving in the body now here. Hey, why not? Since it's a program on the body, maybe let's just take a second to be in our bodies together. Welcome and welcoming all of us together in our bodies, and just take a nice deep breath. Let your shoulders go down and notice where your butt is on the chair if you're sitting, or notice your feet on the floor if you're standing, and just take one moment to breathe in and out. Hello, body in space, in this place, right here, right now. Welcome, friends. Welcome to an hour of poetry on the body. And I'm glad we're here. Thank you for making it. We'll start with a question. What is the body? What is the body? Tonight we'll be asking that question again and again and again, and letting poems answer that question. And I'll read the poems, talk about them a little bit, give you prompts for writing. And again, you will receive those poems in an email, links to all the poems, links to this video, so that you can use it again as a chance to write on your own. Probably not as much writing tonight, although perhaps you write as we go. That would be fun too. We'll start with how Rumi answers that question. This is from Jalaluddin Rumi, and it's a version by Coleman Barks. What is the body? What is the body? The shadow of your love. The shadow of your love. That somehow contains the entire universe. What is the body? The shadow of your love. Somehow contains the entire universe. I pretty much love that answer. What is the body? The shadow of your love that somehow contains the entire universe. Well, there's the ecstatic answer. Thank you, Rumi, for that one. We're gonna just play. I think that this particular thought shop, this particular theme could go on for hours and hours and days and days and days. There were so many poems that I wanted to choose, and then I had to pick. We'll just see how far we get. We'll see how many we get through. But so many aspects of having a body, of being in a body, of worrying about a body, of healing, and of sensual pleasure, and of frustration, and of praise, and there's so many aspects, so we'll just touch as many as we can. And we're going to start with a poem by Lucille Clifton, and it's a praise poem. And this particular poem, it's kind of a short one. I imagine her having a lot of fun when she wrote this poem. It's an ode, which is just a poem usually in praise of things. It's describing a thing. And this is Homage to My Hips by Lucille Clifton. These hips are big hips. They need space to move around in. They don't fit into little pretty places. These hips are free hips. They don't like to be held back. These hips have never been enslaved. They go where they want to go. They do what they want to do. These hips are mighty hips. These hips are magic hips. I have known them to put a spell on a man and spin him like a top. That was Homage to My Hips by Lucille Clifton. I mean, come on, doesn't it sound like she's having a good time when she's writing this poem? And I can hear her voice. If you haven't heard Lucille Clifton read before, there are audio versions of this poem, so you could hear it in her own voice. And she's fun and flirty and sexy and proud and powerful. So it seems to me that she is utterly claiming this part of her body. She's telling us what they do and what they don't do. What they don't need, they are not going to fit into little pretty places. They are not going to be held back. They are not going to be enslaved. So as much as she tells us what they will do and what they can do, she also tells us the opposite. And I love that play in this poem. In fact, that's probably, poems love tension. And that is the tension in this poem, is what can they do and what can they not do? And boy, does she bring in the power of what they can do. So this is just a fun, and I think a relatively easy prompt for writing a poem about the body, is to choose a part of your body and praise it. Just fall in love with it. And even, like I think Lucille Clifton does, just brag about it a little bit. How great is it? She even puts an exclamation point at the end of her poem, which I think is kind of hilarious. I have known them to put a spell on a man and spin him like a top, exclamation point, which is hilarious, especially because she tends to not use any punctuation at all. So it feels especially delightful, I think, in this poem. So yeah, choose a body part? What can it do? Brag about it a little bit. What is its claim to fame? Okay, turning it around 1,000%. This is an ode to the body that seems to almost despise this body part. And my friend John D. Lee wrote this poem last week. We were teaching together in Ohio, and we were writing odes. And this is the poem that John wrote in a half hour, I might add. He just whipped this one out. This is Ode to My Intestines. Hollowed, mucused worm that writhes in darkness, musty, borborygmic interrupter of conversations, noxious balloon of private delicacies. You demand everything for yourself disgustingly. Gobble chime and bile as if pureed filet mignon sucked through a straw. Belch expensive burgundy without wiping your sulfurous mouth. Speak unwanted hysterics of your personal peristalsis. You cannot live absent attention, absent constant coddling and nursing, a permanent infant lodged beneath my heart. Shit. If I gave you nothing, you'd do nothing but complain. And so I must inversely pay you attention to shut you up, hide your existence to allow my own, give you voice when only silence is acceptable. Sweet nightmare. indelicate mother, how I abhor being your unwilling parasite. Oh my gosh, what a fun poem, huh? It's like the opposite of a praise poem. It's almost a hate poem. I hate having an intestine, he says. And the language in this poem, right? Hollow mucused worm that writhes in darkness, musty borborygmic. I mean, come on, a word like borborygmic, it made it into a poem. It's this poem is wildly delightful in its disgust. I also happen to love, by the way, that John put the word shit in the middle of this poem about intestines. There was something so deeply satisfying about that. And we'd been talking about another poet who managed to get the F-bomb in her poem. And he was thinking about how he had said just before writing this poem, how much he kind of admired that it was a very useful, helpful word in that poem, when so often it doesn't work. But so here's an idea. Choose a part of your body that really frustrates you or even disgusts you. And be very specific about it. What does it do that disturbs you? What do you not love about this part of your body? Perhaps, like John, pull in lots of language about the biology of it. You know, what does he have in here? He's got the peristalsis, and he's got the sulfur, and he's got, well, I don't know where he can, mucus. Oh my gosh. Bring in the biology. How does this body part work? What does this body part do? And why is it necessary, even if you abhor it? I guess that's really the point. That's the pleasure of this poem, I suppose, is that no matter how much he despises this part of the body for how loud it is and its belching and its loudness, he acknowledges he needs it. So it's a difficult relationship. I think you could have a lot of fun with this particular poem. And by the way, I've noticed that writing poems about things that we love can often be much harder than writing poems about things that we don't love. There is something in that tension of frustration, repulsion that seems to spark us and liven us. So, okay, moving on past the ode. The next poem is about how the body itself might help us learn something new, just in playing with it, with moving around, with seeing what the body has to teach us. So this poem is called How to Hold the Heavy Weight of Now. It's by Dana Levin. She said, "You just made this gesture with your body," and opened her arms as if she could barely fit them around an enormous ball. "Make that shape again," she said. And so I did. "Now, let it change," she said. And I did, slowly closing the space between my arms, fingertips converging until they touched. I watched my hands turn together, align pinky side to pinky side. I watched my palms open, pushing gently forward, leading my body forward. I watched them let a bird go. I watched my hands make an offering. That was How to Hold the Heavy Weight of Now. And I'm not totally sure that came across. So I'm going to just try and show now this movement that the poem is describing, how the body begins trying to hold like this. And then the instruction is, now let it change. And the poet does this. Oh my gosh, do I love this poem. It's so physical, it's so embodied, and it so lets the body Teach her something. She's reporting, this is what happened when I made a motion and then changed it. What beautiful instruction from someone, she doesn't say who, to notice this is the movement that I'm making to make this point. And then whoever's doing this instruction says, now let it change. And just for allowing the body itself to do something new and teach us. I think of all the ways that we hold our bodies that come very instinctively often, right? How we might bow our heads in shame, or how we might curl up when we are frightened. And I imagine what would happen if in one of these moments we catch ourselves in our bodies and let's just say we bow our heads in shame, right? And then we say to ourselves, now let's change it. What else can you do? Can you what happens when you lift your head up? What does that small change in the body do? What if you drop down to the ground and put your head on the floor? There's so many different options, right? But just to let yourself notice, this is what my body is doing in this moment. This is how I'm embodying this moment. Now let it change. The teaching in this poem is so profound and so simple. Now let it change. So that's the invitation in this poem. Think of a gesture. Notice what your body's doing. And then invite yourself to make that shape with your body and let it change. I would suggest just playing with it for a long time before you write. And then write about what happens. Write about what happens. Okay, moving on. We're moving into the sports section of our body program. And this is a poem by our present poet laureate here in the United States, Ada Limon. And the poem is called How to Triumph Like a Girl. I like the lady horses best. How they make it all look easy, like running 40 miles per hour is as fun as taking a nap or grass. I like their lady horse swagger after winning. Ears up, girls, ears up. But mainly, let's be honest, I like that they're ladies. As if this big, dangerous animal is also a part of me. That somewhere inside the delicate skin of my body, there pumps an 8-pound female horse heart. Giant with power, heavy with blood. Don't you want to believe it? Don't you want to tug my shirt and see the huge beating genius machine that thinks, oh no, it knows it's going to come in first? That was How to Triumph Like a Girl by Ada Limon. Oh my gosh, the joy in this poem as she watches this magnificent animal and imagines that all of that magnificence of that animal could be possible in her, that she also could embody that magnificence. There's the line right in the heart of this poem, as if this big, dangerous animal is also part of me. Boy, those are such powerful words, aren't they? As if, as if. I love the potential that shows up when we ask ourselves to complete that little phrase, as if what? She just invites that miracle of the embodiment of that animal into herself. And then I love the question she asks in here, don't you want to believe it? Don't you want to believe it? So here's an idea. Here's an invitation from this poem, a prompt for your own writing, should you choose. Think of an animal that you admire greatly for its physicality. What does it do? Describe how it moves. How is it in the world? And then imagine, as Ada Limon did, that this animal is somehow embodied in you. As she says, it's inside the delicate skin of your body. How does it inform you? How does it change how you move through the world? How does it change how you think about yourself? What a great poem this is. All right, moving on. I love your comment, Amrita, by the way. 8-pound heart, right? Isn't that a kind of phenomenal fact? Notice how that facts are so fun in poems. I just think that when I get into a poem sometimes and start doing research, that research really can drive the poem. And a fact like that, having an 8-pound heart, the fact that it runs 40 miles an hour, can infuse the imagination. So how do we let facts become part of the mystery of what it is to be alive? Here's another poem about just the body and kind of the brilliance of the body, and especially in sports. And this is a poem that I wrote called Skate Skiing at Priest Lake. And for those of you who aren't familiar with skate skiing, it's a kind of Nordic skiing, a kind of cross-country skiing, in which you need a track, but you aren't doing that shuffle in the track. It's more of it's like ice skating, basically, but on skis. So this is Skate Skiing at Priest Lake. For 2 hours, I am more lung than thought, more legs than loss, more heartbeat than heartache, and so wholly alive as I become rhythm of push and glide, pull and swing. I transform into a flying thing, each shift from ski to sliding ski, a calling on balance that comes from the core. By the time I ski back to the car, it's not that I have forgotten my loss. It's just that every cell in me now remembers the dance between falling and recovery, falling and recovery, how it happens again and again, how this is the way we recalibrate. We fall, we recover, we move forward. That one last year. It's my favorite sport. I love this sport. And I remember when I wrote this poem, I really wanted to capture the feeling of movement, the feeling of rhythm. Skate skiing is an exceptionally rhythmic sport that very much depends on establishing a rhythm and keeping that rhythm. And I remember so well too, that feeling of being so completely in my body, being so attuned to the muscle and the movement, that, like I say in this poem, it's not like I forgot loss, which I think that most of you here who are on this program know that I've had several major losses in the last year and a half, my son, my father, and being in my body was so helpful in those moments that I found this great joy in having a body at the same time that I was experiencing this great devastation emotionally. Not that the loss went away, but that somehow the cells themselves remembered, this is what it is to be alive. And then I let that action, the action of skiing, which really is falling and recovery, just like walking, right? The Laurie Anderson's song says, we're, what does she say? We're walking and falling at the same time. With each step, we fall and then we catch ourselves from falling. That's the same thing with skate skiing, is that you basically fall and catch yourself and fall and catch yourself. And I loved that metaphor then for what it is to be in the world. That each time we fall and recover and fall and recover, physically, it is a sweet little metaphorical teaching about how the heart too can fall and recover and fall and recover. So here's an idea for you for writing your own poem, is to write a poem that describes your body while you are actively participating in an activity that you love, some kind of sport. What parts of your body do you notice? Use lots of verbs. What do you notice is different about your body before and after you do this activity? And is there any metaphoric invitation in this movement? For instance, that fall, recover seemed like an obvious one for me. In your favorite sport, whatever that is, do you notice that there's some kind of an invitation for you, for what does it mean to be alive? Does this sport have any? And if not, I mean, don't worry about it. You don't have to force it, but notice if there is something, if something comes to mind. Also, by the way, perhaps your sport also has a rhythm and you allow that rhythm to inform the poem that you write. Ooh, good. We've just arrived at the part of the program where we talk about the sensual pleasures of having a body. And yeah, that's right. The SEX portion of the program. I had to have this one by E.E. Cummings. This is, I like my body when it is with your. It's just the first line. A thing, muscles better and nerves more. I like your body. I like what it does. I like its hows. I like to feel the spine of your body and its bones and the trembling firm smoothness, and which I will again and again and again kiss. I like kissing this and that of you. I like slowly stroking the shocking fuzz of your electric fur, and what is it comes over parting flesh and eyes, big love crumbs. And possibly I like the thrill of under me, you, so quite new. I love that poem so much. That's I Like My Body When It Is With Your by E.E. Cummings. Obviously, he's having a good time too writing this poem. And I love that this poem is basically just a list. I like. I like that this poem feels playful. I like that this poem has very simple language. I like that this poem uses sound so beautifully and playfully. For instance, this, I like slowly stroking the shocking fuzz of your electric fur. All the sound and the that's really fun, isn't it? E. Cummings knows how to have a really good time with language. And come on, if we're going to write a poem about having sex, we might as well have a whole lot of fun. So another thing I love that he does here is that he takes words that are nouns and he makes them verbs. He does that in the third line. He says, well, I'm going to read the first three lines just to get us into it. He says, I like my body when it is with your body. It is so quite new a thing, muscles better and nerves more. So he uses the word muscle and nerves, in this case, both as nouns and creates them as verbs. My body muscles, my body nerves. Really fun how he does that. So first of all, as an idea for writing your own poem, rule number one is have fun with this one. Here's idea one, which maybe isn't necessarily about sex, but when do you like your body? He starts, I like my body when, and you could just fill in that blank. I like my body when, and write that poem. Write the poem about when you like your body. Another is to write a poem that somehow celebrates two bodies, or I suppose more if you're more experimental, that celebrates your body and the body of another person. It could be a lover, but I'm going to suggest that it could also be the pleasure of having your body with another body in a sensual way that is not necessarily sexual. For instance, a close friend when you're snuggling, or a child, or your mom or dad when you're, or brother, or just to have a, what is it like when two bodies come together? Write about your body, their body, and how you know that person through their body and through yours. And what does that do to your relationship? What does their body teach you about your own body? It is not easy, I'm going to suggest, to write a very sensual poem about someone who is not your lover. I've done it though, and I enjoy this challenge to write the poem about holding your child, to write the poem about snuggling with your parent, to write the poem about holding the hand of your friend. I do feel as if these sensual poems are important also. And the sex poems are important too. And on that note, this particular one that comes to us from Mae Swenson, one of my favorite American poets, and it is probably my favorite sensual poem of all times. It may not be yours, but for me, man, Mae Swenson really touches it with this one. This is 4-word lines. Now she says that it's spelled out 4, the number 4-word lines. That's actually true in this poem. Each line has 4 words in it, but of course it's also a pun or a play on words, as in forward, like I'm going to be a little forward with you now. 4-word lines. Your eyes are just like bees, and I feel like a flower. Their brown power makes a breeze go over my skin. When your lashes ride down and rise like a brown bee's legs, your pronged gaze makes my eyes gauze. I wish we were in some shade and no swarm of other eyes to know that I'm a flower breathing bare, laid open by your bees' warm stare. I'd let you wade in me and seize with your eager brown bees' power, as sweet glistening at my core. Oh, yum. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Mae Swenson. There it is, 4-word lines by Mae Swenson. I love every single line in this poem. I just can't praise it enough, and I have tried. And if you want to read me going on and on and on and read this poem and talk about this poem and why I love it so much, you can find it at sundress.org. If you just Google Rosemerry, Trommer, Mae Swenson, sundress, I'm sure you'll find it. And I go on at great length about all the reasons I love this poem formally. But for tonight, why do I love this poem so much? For the body, I love the play of imagining this relationship between two people's bodies in a metaphorical way. In this case, your eyes are like bees, and I feel like a flower. And then Mae just goes on with exploring what is the relationship then between these two bodies. What a fun idea. Imagine the eyes of your lover as an animal, any animal. Imagine your body as the thing that they most want to eat. Oh my gosh, fun. How will your lover devour you? Where do your bodies touch? You can totally just steal this formula. Your eyes are like fill in the blank, and I feel like fill in the blank. So in this, your eyes are just like an animal, and I feel like their favorite food. Your eyes are just like a bear, and I feel like honey. So go ahead and, oh my gosh, have fun with this, friends. Because we started so late, I'm a little bit at odds about what to do. I had I had about 45 minutes of poems, and then I had thought to have 15 minutes of questions. I'm going to read a few more poems, and then I know some of you probably have to leave on the hour. So I'm going to just read a couple more poems, and then we'll still have a time for Q&A, and I will plan to stay on till about 15 after the hour so that we can have all of that time together. So these are two very short poems by Izumi Shikibu, and I chose these poems because they're very short. They're just 5-line poems, and I love the efficiency of them, and I love what can happen in just 5 lines. I also chose them because they speak about the effect of love on the body. Here we go. I'll just read them. They don't have titles, but these are 2 poems by Izumi Shikibu. In this world, love has no color, yet how deeply my body is stained by yours. I'll read it again. In this world, love has no color, yet how deeply my body is stained by yours. Okay, here's the second poem. Even when a river of tears courses through this body, the flame of love cannot be quenched. Here it is again. Even when a river of tears courses through this body, the flame of love cannot be quenched. Oh, look what you can do in just 5 lines. Oh. So, write a poem about the effect of love on your body in 5 lines. 2 ideas, stealing them from Izumi Shikibu. 1, write a poem about another person's body and how it has affected your body. I guess that's going back to Mae Swenson. But what I love particularly about the second poem is that she's really dealing in paradox, that there's a river of tears and this flame of love. So the body itself, there's this external weeping and there's this internal flame. So maybe how does what's happening in the physical body defy what's happening in the emotional body? Something to play with. Give yourself a 5-line limit. By the way, don't bother counting syllables. Just try and have some tension in those 5 lines. Sad. I have so many more poems for us. We'll do it again, friends. We'll do it again. Okay. This one, I have shared this poem before in other contexts, and it feels like such an important poem to me. It's St. Francis and the Sow by Galway Kinnell. The bud stands for all things, even those things that don't flower, for everything flowers from within, of self-blessing. Though sometimes it is necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness, to put a hand on its brow of the flower and retell it in words and in touch. It is lovely. until it flowers again from within of self-blessing. As St. Francis put his hand on the creased forehead of the sow and told her in words and in touch, blessings of earth on the sow, and the sow began remembering all down her thick length, from the earthen snout all the way through the fodder and slops to the spiritual curl of the tail, from the hard spininess spiked out from the spine down through the great broken heart, to the sheer blue milk and dreaminess, spurting and shuddering from the 14 teats into the 14 mouths, sucking and blowing beneath them. Long, perfect loveliness of sow. Oh, hey, I made it through without crying. That doesn't always happen when I read this poem. Not that I think it's a problem to cry, by the way. You all know that. But that was St. Francis and the Sow by Galway Canal. Why do I love this poem so much? Perhaps you too in your life have forgotten your own loveliness. Perhaps you somehow managed to convince yourself you weren't worthy, that your body wasn't worthy. And I'm guessing most of us have some experience with this. I personally, I had a very difficult relationship with my body. I had an eating disorder for 18 years. And for that whole time, I had no idea that loveliness was possible. It felt impossible. I certainly identified with the sow in this poem, with the fodder and slops and the hard spininess spiked out from the spine and the great broken heart and the spurting and the shuddering. I think the reason that I often do cry when I read this poem is because of the way that St. Francis puts his hand on this animal that few of us would ever say is beautiful, and reminds it, as the poem says, through touch. Where's the line? And told her in words and in touch. Blessings. It's so beautiful when someone else reminds us that we are beautiful, that with words and with touch, they remind us, I love that you have a body. Your body is so worthy. That reteaches us our own loveliness. And though the reason I think I love this poem most of all is because it honors that although that part is important, the most important part is that we blossom from within. As Galway Canal writes, for everything flowers from within of self-blessing. That self-blessing more essential than anyone else's blessing of us. But sometimes, he says, sometimes it's necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness. So an idea for this, for your own writing, is to think of a time when your body was blessed by someone else. Is there a time when someone else taught you, retaught you your own loveliness? If not, you could imagine that St. Francis or someone else does. That any other being or creature, or even a concept, or God, or, well, really anything comes and blesses you. How? How does it bless you? Where does it touch you? How does it help you remember through its blessing who you are and what it is to have a body? How would that blessing change the way you see your body? Oh, Wow, we've covered some ground, friends, haven't we? Oh boy, now I have to choose just one more poem to read with you. That's tough. All right, then it's going to be this one. It's Crossroads by Louise Gluck. And the reason I chose this one is because it touches on mortality. And of course, this is the thing we know about having a body, is that it dies. Emily Dickinson has a line, it's something like, I'm afraid of having a body. What's the line? I have it right here. She says, I am afraid to own a body. I am afraid to own a body. Why does she say that? Because she knows it will die. So knowing that we will die, how do we have a relationship then with our body and its mortality? And that's what this poem discusses. It's Crossroads by Louise Gluck. My body, now that we will not be traveling together much longer, I begin to feel a new tenderness toward you, very raw and unfamiliar, like what I remember of love when I was young. Love that was so often foolish in its objectives, but never in its choices. In its intensities, too much demanded in advance, too much that could not be promised. My soul has been so fearful, so violent. Forgive its brutality. As though it were that soul, my hand moves over you cautiously, not wishing to give offense, but eager finally to achieve expression as substance. It is not the earth I will miss. It is you I will miss. That was Crossroads by Louise Gluck. What a stunning poem that really explores what it is to make peace. Well, let's not even go that far. What it is to touch on, honor, meet our own mortality. I love that she writes this poem as a letter. In poetry, a letter poem is called an epistle. And I love the idea then of writing our body a letter. Dear body, my body, oh body, you body. Write a letter to your body that acknowledges your mortality. How do you feel about your body knowing that it will die? Where are you in the journey of your relationship to this vessel? In what ways do you want to ask its forgiveness? What do you imagine you will miss about not having a body? Oh, well, I'm going to go ahead and stop there because it's 7 o'clock. So if you need to leave because of because that's what time we said this was going to be over, then thank you so much for coming. But if you can stay, then let's have a little bit of a Q&A. You can either type questions or comments into the chat bar or into the Q&A section. And I'd be happy to stay on for the next 15 minutes and we'll just talk about writing poems. It could be specifically about the body, or it could be just about a poetry writing practice in general. And let's see, Pat Savage writes, there's the Dalai, Pope Francis, and Rosemerry Trommer. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Pat, for that beautiful comment. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Since no one has a question yet, I'm going to go ahead and read another poem, a very short one, because I wrote a prompt on it myself last night. I used this poem as a prompt and I had so much fun with it, friends. But while I'm reading this poem, go ahead and type in a question into the chat bar or into the Q&A. This is a poem by A.D. Lauren Abenasser, and it's called Dream in Which My Body is a Snowstorm. Dream in which my body is a snowstorm and doesn't make anyone cold. If I fell, I would fall in state-shaped flakes, one for every place my body lingered, one for every little bit of light I stole and kept. No cars, startless, no tangled up roadways, neck becoming mountain of drift, foot becoming fierce kicking eddies, Heat would not melt me, hands would not help me undo. Blanketing softly, whimsy, not pretend. Dream in which my body is a snowstorm, and the storm says, a purpose in falling. That was A.D. Lauren Abanasar, Dream in Which My Body is a Snowstorm. And hey, I had so much fun last night writing a poem in which my daughter and I were in the kitchen and we were making a cake, and she was playing a song that we like to dance around the kitchen to. And I had so much fun just dancing and swirling, and all day I had been sitting and sitting and sitting. And I wrote a poem in which I decided that my body had become a whirlwind, a dervish, a dust devil. And this is the possibility, is to write a poem in which your body becomes some kind of weather. And it could be an avalanche, it could be a mudslide, it could be a hurricane, a heat wave, a soft breeze. Write about your body as if it becomes this other thing. And how does it affect other people? And what does this weather have to teach you about what it is to have a body? Oh my gosh, that's a fun one to do. Okay, so let's see. I'm looking at the chat bar now to see if any other prompts or questions came in. And here we have, what was the name of the poet I taught with in Ohio? And I saw somebody else wrote in, it's John D. Lee. That's John, Jon, D, period, Lee, Lee. Thanks, Paula Lepp. Oh, I see that you answered that. Especially since I appreciate my body more than I ever have, although it's different. Yeah, it changes. It sure changes. Hi, Julie Rome. Could you speak a little bit about your daily practice of writing a poem every day? You bet. So I have been writing a poem every day since 2006. It started just as a chance to see if I could write a poem every day for 30 days, which honestly sounded impossible. I did not think I could do it. But it was a challenge, and I had two other people who joined me in that challenge, and we promised each other that we would send each other our poems every day. Not that we would comment on them, just that we would read them. I highly recommend this. If you want to start a daily practice, I highly recommend that you infuse it with some sense of accountability by having two other people that you promise to send your poems to every day. Why should it be three people? Because one person will flake out. It's just true. So you want to have at least two of you who are going to keep it up. The most important things that I have learned from a daily practice, it's changed so much over the years, friends, and I learned something new all the time. And probably the biggest thing that came out of it was that I had immediately needed to learn that it couldn't be perfect, that I couldn't expect perfection every day. Obviously, I couldn't write a masterpiece every day. That was very hard for the perfectionist in me. And what ultimately opened up this deep love affair with the truth. Ultimately, I came up with this promise to myself that it didn't have to be good, but it had to be true, which is to say it had to be authentic. It had to rise up as something that felt juicy and real and exciting. I know this now for a fact, and it floods over into every other part of life. And this, by the way, is the real reason to have why I continue with a daily writing practice, not to have poems. The poems themselves, like I like to call them the happy byproduct of what really matters, which is the practice of showing up, of noticing what's here. What's here now? What's inside? What's outside? What's the relationship between these two worlds? And this love affair with the truth. What's here? And the invitation I give myself every day when I sit down with a blank is just write the next true thing. What's the next true thing? What's the next true thing? That practice has changed my life. And I will say that I knew this, I've known this for many years, but when a year and a half ago, my son died, very suddenly, he chose to take his own life. It was in large part, I think, because I had a daily practice of showing up every day and being curious about what is here, curious about what is true, that I was able to meet that very challenging time and continue to show up and stay present. And I had no idea how essential this practice would be for me. And now I feel like it's not too dramatic to say it saved me. Let's see. Casey writes, how to hold the heavy weight of now reminds me of authentic movement, a wonderful practice for letting the body teach and speak to us. Absolutely, Casey. What a great point. And I'm glad you brought that up. I particularly love that poem. And I love the way the body so informs the writing of that. Sherry says, Aisha says, have you a poem to suggest about aging or more about mortality? So many. In fact, I will be doing another Thoughtshop on mortality. We're just going to completely go there. And I'm going to guess that will be in the early winter. So probably February-ish. I'll do a full Thoughtshop on mortality and aging. In the meantime, let me say, though, there is an incredible resource on this, and that would be a new CD out by Kim Rosen called Feast of Losses. And this CD, which you can either get as a CD or you can get it as a download, and she recites poems by other people, Mary Oliver and Stanley Kunitz and W.S. Merwin and Lucille Clifton. She's reading all these poems about aging and mortality, and it's absolutely stunning. So again, that's Kim Rosen, Feast of Losses, and Jamie Cyber is accompanying her on cello, and I just can't recommend it enough. Deborah says, oh my gosh, 14 new messages. Thank you. I'm in my 18th month of writing a poem a day. Fabulous, Deborah. I'm so proud of you. Way to go. Rob says, I think I should write an apology to my body. Oh, what a beautiful idea, Rob. I have not been too smart. Pushing it, breaking it may be foolhardy, but it seems it has made all the difference. Perhaps for us both. Can we be separate entities? Thoughts. Okay, my first thought is that's a genius idea, writing an apology letter to our bodies. And I think I have several on my blog. If you go to 100 Falling Veils and you write apology body, I bet you find at least a few. What a good idea. Yeah, I think we owe our body lots of apologies. Can we be separate entities? This is so interesting too, right? The part of us that witnesses the body and the part of us that is the body. Absolutely. I think writing this letter to the body from whatever it is that's conscious in us it's a stunning way to create a stronger relationship with our body. Hey, T.A. Barron says, we cherish you, Rosemerry. Your deep wisdom and great heart inspire us. Thank you so much, Tom. Good to see you. I'm so glad you're here. Judy Lay says, Silver by Jeanette Espinosa is a great poem about aging. Thanks for that referral. And looking for another question. Will you be doing more of these workshops online? I don't live near you. Yes, I was doing them every month, but I've been in the middle of a huge project that I am so close to finishing, friends. And then I'll start doing quite a few more of these Thoughtshops. And of course, I'll start doing workshops again. I've taken a break from that, but it's coming up. It'll all start probably next summer. I'll be doing more. I do have one coming up online, a 2-day workshop in March. And you can find all of the opportunities for workshops on my website, which is wordwoman.com. And Shoshana Castle, hi friend, I'm going to give me a body a bath this night and thank it for everything. Way to go. Way to thank our bodies for all that they do for us. Geraldine says, since I first heard we don't have to be perfect, but we need to be true, my whole life has been affected. Geraldine, thanks so much for saying it just that way. I find the same thing is true, that the more that I can fully practice something on a page and in this writing practice, showing up to a blank, being curious, what's here, knowing there are so many ways to do it right, knowing that all I need to do is write the next true thing, that it doesn't have to be good. It just has to be true. these teachings that happen in the smallest ways with the page, these small practices open up to everything about what it is to be alive. How is it that we are going to meet any given moment in our lives? That's the reason I keep writing a poem every day. I'm glad you've had that experience too. Well, friends, I think that's everything. I am so grateful that you showed up, and sorry again about the confusion with the links for tonight. We'll look forward to seeing you again in the future. I appreciate you. I am grateful for you joining. Should we do that first starting little poem again? I'm going to sing it, and we can just close with that. And you can sing it, repeat it right there in your own home. Just repeat after me. What is a body? What is a body? The shadow of your love. The shadow of your love. That somehow contains the entire universe. That somehow contains the entire universe. Thank you, friends. Thanks so much. We'll be sending you the recording and all of the poems and links to them. Thanks for all your beautiful notes. I'm just going to read them right now. Feel free to stay on and leave notes, and I'll just read them.